What is going on, guys? DragonTamerBlayde here, back with some more Elder Scrolls Legends, and today it is my honor, it is my pleasure to bring you an Alliance War card reveal. As always, thank you so much to Bethesda and Sparkypants for allowing me to take place in this card reveal. I don't see any point in kind of continuing to string you guys along, and I'm actually going to try and point to the right side of the screen this time, but let's bring up the card over here, and let's talk about it. As you can see here, the card's name is Salvage. It is a 2-cost strength action with the ability to choose an item in your discard pile, draw it and all items with the same name from your discard pile. So, obviously, the initial synergy that you guys are going to think about when you see this card is in item decks. You could pull crazy things like your Tomes of Alteration. Let's just filter by items, actually. We're going to talk about the card here, so, I mean, all you wanted to see was the card. You're good. From now on, we're going to talk about some synergies and stuff like that with the card. So you got things like Tome of Alteration that you can pull back to get some extra card draw. I think it's going to shine in item decks, but I think the bigger use is going to be outside of items decks. Because in a regular items deck, you're going to have something like Master of Arms to pull items from your discard pile. And most often in an item deck, it's going to be Tomes, Glass Helmet Remedy, the Dragon Priest Mask, and the Shackle Mace. Those are going to be the most common cards, and using the Dragon Priest Mask, you can kind of pull all of those out of the discard pile as you need to. But still, if you don't have a Master of Arms yet, or if you want to pull something that's not those, like if you have even just like quality Steel Scimitars, getting 3 of these back can be really good if all 3 of your Steel Scimitars have been destroyed. There's a lot of really quality items. I honestly think that even just pulling back Dawnbreaker makes running a copy or 2 of this card worth it. I think in most decks, you're not going to really want to run 3 copies of Salvage. I think you're going to be pointed more at the 1 to 2 copy range, depending on how item heavy your deck is. But let's say you're just like an aggro Crusader and you want to run 1 copy of Salvage so you can use Dawnbreaker twice. I don't think that's the worst idea. Maybe it's a little bit slow to play a 2-cost action just to have to pay 4 for Dawnbreaker as well. But Dawnbreaker is such a good card, I think you can get away with it. I think one of the best uses of this card is going to be something like mid-range Battle Mage. They play a lot of these Sentinel Battle Maces, which are obviously excellent cards. Being able to pull back even 1 or 2 of these, I think, makes Salvage pretty good. But being able to potentially recycle 3 Sentinel Battle Mace is really, really solid. You can compare Salvage to something like Crucible Blacksmith, which for 2 lets you draw any item of your choice from your deck, whereas Salvage, you have to use your discard pile. But using things like Palace Conspirator can get things into your discard pile, or even Camels if you're going all in on the items. So it's not the biggest deal in the world. And even comboing Crucible Blacksmith with Salvage together can make sure you always have items to work with. And one of the things that I've always talked about being the biggest weakness of items decks has been consistency. Either drawing too many items and no creatures, or all creatures and no items. So being able to kind of use Crucible Blacksmith and Salvage to make sure you always have the correct number of items in hand, I think is really powerful for items deck, and it goes well with the, I forget the card's name, but it was the 2-cost 2/2 with Last Gasp, return all the items equipped to this card to your hand. Though all these cards combining are giving items decks more and more consistency, and kind of ability to recycle, so that you can get the most usage out of your most powerful items. And I think Salvage will fit right into a deck that's kind of along those lines. Another thing that I think is going to be pretty interesting is if you use Galen to shuffle in items. I believe the items will go into your discard pile buffed, since that's the existence of those items were buffed. So you might even be able to pull back buffed items using Galen. If you had used a couple of your buffed items and those creatures died and those items in your discard pile, Salvage pulling back Galened items can be super, super strong, especially if you use it on something cheap like a Scimitar. Scimitar buffing things up to 5/5 is really quality for 1 Magicka, and then being able to get them back is super nuts. What other items do we got going on? I think besides, I think Sentinel Battle Mace is going to be one of the biggest ones. I think Dawnbreaker could be potentially the biggest one, being like arguably the strongest item in the game. I could see the argument for Tomes. Mentor's Ring, maybe not. I can definitely see the argument for Tomes and Mace of Encumbrance. Even something like a Shackle Battle Mage I've never really seen before, just because you got more Shackle effects in green. But if you're playing some sort of item battle mage that's really going heavy on the Maces of Encumbrance, these things are usually huge swing turns when you have Gardener of Swords out, because you get to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 maces, because Gardener of Swords does create a copy as well. So if you play 3 Maces of Encumbrance and you had the Gardener of Swords out on the same time, that is 6 Maces of Encumbrance in your discard pile, and Salvage is potentially draw 6 cards from your discard pile after that. Obviously, that's a pretty extreme edge case, but when you're playing an items deck, it's not uncommon to have tons of copies of items just kind of spread around. That's exactly what Gardener of Swords is there for, is to create copies of the items, and eventually, when Gardener of Swords dies, you're going to have a ton of items in your discard pile. If you played multiple tomes using Gardener of Swords, if you played Mace of Encumbrance, you can pull all of that back. Same thing with things like Master Swordsmith. I compared it to Galen. Master Swordsmith can buff your items as well, so being able to recycle some of those buffed items can be potentially very, very powerful. Arcane Enchanter as well, although that's a bit more outside it. A lot of even dedicated item decks I've seen only run 1 or 2 Arcane Enchanters. So I think the Master Swordsmith or Galen can be quite powerful. As far as other items, I don't think you're going to see all too many that commonly. Although, like I said, if you can't guarantee that you're going to draw an item, or if you're playing, let's say, Slay Warrior, or any other type of Slay deck that focuses on crossbows and Inferno, usually one of the ways of outlasting that type of deck is to force your opponent to use their swords and their crossbows early so that they run out of them and then they don't have a sword or a crossbow to use with either their lethal creature, their Archon Venom Tongue, or their Night Talon Lord, or anything like that, any of those high-value Slay creatures. You want to burn their swords and crossbows as early as possible. However, now, depending on how many copies of Salvage they run, you might have to work your way through 3 Swords of the Inferno, 3 crossbows, and then they play Salvage, and then you have to work your way through 3 more swords or 3 more crossbows. I really think that there's a lot of decks that 1 or 2 copies of Salvage can slide right in and potentially be like a hyper swing type of card. Even just being able to find a couple extra damage from your discard pile to push for lethal, I think will make you happy to run Salvage in a lot of decks. There's a lot of decks that are using items just for that last bit of reach. Like I mentioned before, if you're running like Dawnbreaker that you used in the early game, you got your Dawnbreaker and this card that you can recycle, your Sentinel Battle Mace. That's 4 extra damage that you can pull from your discard pile. And you go back and forth. Crucible Blacksmith is perfectly fine, and you do get the body attached to it that you can equip that item to that you pulled. But again, you can only pull 1 of them from your deck, so you're basically replacing Crucible Blacksmith with the item. It's a net even card, which isn't bad because it's still targeted draw. Whereas Salvage, you're going to spend 1 card, but potentially draw. In an average situation, you're going to draw 2 to 3 cards if you use the items, or more if you used Gardener of Swords or Galen. You could potentially draw up to 6 items or more, which obviously in that situation is completely bonkers. But yeah, like I said, I think Crusader decks with their Scimitars and Dawnbreakers, Slay decks that are using sort of the Inferno and Crossbow, and I'm sure there's going to be a whole bunch of items that we haven't even seen revealed yet that could be powerful as well that you're going to want to play multiple copies of. But just between the Battle Mace, the Dawnbreaker, Crossbow Sword, and even something as small as a Scimitar, there's so many different decks that are going to have something that you're going to want to pull back from your discard pile. And I think Salvage is going to be great in a lot of those situations. So, what do you guys think of Salvage? Do you guys think it's a good card? I'll give you guys a rating in one of my future card review videos. This one's going to be just a reveal only. But what do you guys think? Let me know down below in the comment section. If there's any other decks that I didn't mention that you guys think Salvage would be a powerful card in, let me know. If there's maybe there's a different type of deck that you think Salvage can enable now that wasn't quite viable before. I'd be glad to hear that. I just wanted to see all your guys' thoughts. This is my favorite time of year. Every time we get to see a new card, there's so much theory crafting that goes on, and so many other ideas that people are having based on what cards can be used here, what decks this fits into. It's super exciting, and I love to see what you guys think, because obviously I don't think of everything, so seeing what you guys come up with is super entertaining. But yeah, that's going to be it for now, guys. Again, thank you to Bethesda and Sparkypants for letting me take place in the Alliance War festivities. If you weren't already aware, Alliance War comes out April 15th, so we are less than 2 weeks away. I am super excited. I hope you guys are as well. But yeah, that's going to be it for now. Thank you guys all very much for watching. See you guys next time. Peace.